And happy Friday. Thank you everybody for joining us today for our, this month's webinar. We will review the options to import data and update data in SAP. My name is Karina Millman and I'm a project manager with Pioneer B1. Today will be joining me Elizabeth Cameron, as we like to call her Beth, and we will review together the processes and the options we have.
Wonderful. Good morning, everyone. As Karina said, my name is Elizabeth or Beth. I have been on a few webinars before, so you may recognize me there. But we're really excited to give you guys some more information today.
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, basically our objective today will be to go over 3 options that we have in SAP to upload and update data. We will review the steps and the uploads and everything needed. So let's get a quick view of the agenda today.
Sorry about that, I caught myself on mute. So today, as Karina mentioned, we are going to be reviewing 3 different methods for importing and updating your data in SAP. The first of those methods is called the Data Transfer Workbench. Within that, we're going to show you the location, some really important files. We're going to explain the template structure to you, also the import process. Karina's going to go through the full import process for you. And we're going to give you some tips and tricks at the end, sprinkled throughout. And after that, we're going to show you import from Excel. Again, we're going to review the templates, review the import process, and give you some tips and tricks. And then last but not least, talk about copying and pasting into forms. After that, we will provide you with some sources of documentation and open it up for a Q&A. As of right now, we do have everyone on mute just for background noise, but we do have the chat in the GoToMeeting. So as we go along, if you have any questions, we'll be monitoring the chat. And then we will also open up the audio at the end for any questions at that point as well. So first of all, before we kind of dig into all of these different data transfer methods or data import methods, we wanted to give you just a quick crash course on some of the setup of SAP, some of the different terms that'll be useful. So a couple of those things, we want to talk about the parent and child table structure. So some of you may be familiar with this. If you are, feel free to check your emails now, but everyone could kind of use a refresher here. So we want to talk about the parent and child table structure. We also want to show you how to view the system information, because that ends up being very helpful in data imports. And then also just talk about the primary key relationship between those parent and child tables. So we'll go into SAP quickly just to see what I mean about these parent and child tables. So as a good example, most people are familiar with the business partner master data, so we can use that here as an example. The first thing to note, the first kind of helpful hint here is that you can go to view and then system information. And this is going to, if you see in this bottom left-hand corner down here, and of course, when I scroll away from it, it disappears. But if you see in that bottom left-hand corner, it gives you OCRD at the end, and it gives you a field name. So this is going to help you in your data import. Maybe if you say, hey, I know I want, info in my mobile phone field, but I don't know exactly. If you look, the name of the field is actually cellular. So that'll help you to actually find the field on the template that you're looking for. And then additionally, we have you see it says OCRD down there on any field that you really scroll on so far. It says OCRD. So that's the parent table, the business partner master data parent table. If you look here in the addresses, for example, you'll see that it shows CRD1. So this is a child table. Now, essentially, when you're uploading data, if you have, for instance, you want to upload a new business partner, you need this, we call it a primary key, or in this case you see is the business partner code. That's just going to be a unique key that holds all of these this one parent table to all of its child tables. So its address table, for instance. This just means that you can't import any of these child tables without their parent tables, and they always need to be linked. So you'd notice that in SAP, you can't have a blank code and name here, but still have addresses. So they're all kind of interdependent in this way. It'll make a lot more sense once we actually do the upload, and you can kind of see how those work. But that is always a big question when you're first starting to do these uploads is, hey, it all seems like it should just be on one template. Why am I needing to do two separate templates? And it's because SAP is handling this parent table and also the child tables in there. So I know the crash course was a lot of information in a short time, but feel free to enter any of your questions into the chat, like I said. Otherwise, from this crash course, if nobody has any questions, we are going to start to take a look at the Data Transfer Workbench. So first of all, we can either, if you want to know if you have the DTW on your computer, you can always search this way. Just go into your search and do data or DTW, and it'll open up our Data Transfer Workbench. So we know that we have it here. We can also look here in our local disk. We can look in our program files, SAP, and we have our Data Transfer Workbench. So usually none of you will have to look at these, these little file structures for anything else. So it's funny that I'm showing it to you for the Data Transfer Workbench, but it's actually, this file holds a lot of treasures. So if we go in here to the templates, we can see that there are samples here and pre-generated templates. So for instance, these templates are what you're going to actually use. These are the Excel files that you're going to put your data in to upload to SAP. It's in a very familiar schema here. It just looks, just like our SAP menu. So it's easy to navigate around. The example that we just used here with the business partners, we have our business partner master data. And then you'll start to see kind of what I was talking about with the parent and child tables. So we have OCRD, which is our parent table, and then here a bunch of child tables. And so this gives you all of your templates. As soon as you have this DTW or Data Transfer Workbench program installed on your computer, these will all be here for you and all generated. And then also to help you out in this templates folder are sample files. So if you're adding new data, updating existing data, things like that, it'll provide you in the same way with these sample files so that if there's something that you've never uploaded before, you now have kind of the structure to do so. And we can see that there. And it looks like we have a question in the chat. So Brian asked, he said he doesn't have the DTW installed. Should it auto install with SAP? So it actually comes with SAP, but it doesn't auto install with SAP unless you choose to install it. So you will have to install it separately than you would with your SAP client, but we can always help out with that. So otherwise, this is where, like I said, all of your good templates, sample files, things like that. And just really quickly before Karina starts the actual import process, I wanted to show you how to generate a template in the Data Transfer Workbench program. So to open here, I opened the program. I just have it, pinned right down here. One of the important things I didn't mention, but you might have seen, is I right-clicked and ran the program as admin. So since you are importing data into SAP, it's very important that you run it as administrator. If you do have any users that you don't maybe want to have admin privileges over the whole computer or over the whole, desktop, but you do want to allow them to run DTW, we do have a workaround for that, so feel free to reach out to us. Otherwise, when you log in, here you just log in with your SAP credentials, choose your database, and click OK. And it'll just take a second to boot up. There we go. And so the important part here, we did show you where the templates are hiding. Once you install the DTW program, all those templates will generate, but I've never seen a database that's not customized. And so if you have created any kind of user-defined fields, you'll want to generate new templates. And so to do that, all you have to do is log into the Data Transfer Workbench and click Customize Template. Select Object, choose the template that you want to create, and then from here, we'll just be able to do right-click and create template. And it'll take a moment to kind of generate up here. So what this does is pulls all of your fields from there, and it'll add in any user-defined fields. So it takes everything that you need and everything that's in the database for that table at one point in time and generates a template for it. And then we go ahead and save it. And I can just save it over here on the desktop. So we'll just take a look at this really quickly. Now this is a template. This is the parent table, this OCRD parent table template that we're going to be putting data in. As you can see, there are all of these little red flags up here. And these are notes, so it's going to tell you exactly what you need to know about the limitations or the structure of that field. For instance, this one, as we noted, our card code is our primary key. So this field is mandatory, and that'll be mandatory as well for the child tables. It also gives you field length information in there. It tells you if there's any valid values that are needed. And things like that. So if there are no questions right now, I'll hand it back over to Karina, and she will take it from here with the template, give you some data, and do an upload.
Thank you, Beth. Let's take a look at the templates that we prepared for our current upload. So just a second, let's open those. So today, what we're planning on doing, we would like to update some settings for our business partners. In this case, they're customers. We already have these customers in our system, so this will be an update. I would like to show you that you can update any information in the fields as long as it correlates with the field settings. So here, as Beth mentioned, we put in the card code that we would like to use in SAP or update. In this case, if we're updating, this will be our primary key, and the system will know how to make the right link and know what to update with what information. The important field here, the card type, we will need to make sure that we're putting it the right values. As you can see, if I want to upload a customer, to create a customer, I will need to use the C customer, not just customer, but use the specific valid values. I'm sorry. Another update that we can do, we can also update the customer group. For example, if we would like to change the group, set up a different group relationship for our customers, we can do that here with the group code, and you can see that in this case we have a related table. So when we upload with DTW, we do not use the actual name of the group. We will need to use the code, and you will need to go into the OCRG table to know what is the code for the group that you would like to upload. Another thing that you will need to remember when working with the DTW template is that we have to make sure that we're using the same format all the time. Even if some of the columns here are not relevant, I'm not going to update most of them usually. I do need to keep them. If I delete any of the columns, my upload will just fail. So for me to make it easier to update my information, what I can do, I can just hide the columns that are not relevant. Before I do my upload, I will need to just unhide them just so the DTW program can see the full file saved. So we also updated here properties and discount percentage for our customers. So let's go into the DTW program and let's see how we upload this file. Any questions so far? Okay. So in order to start with my import, I will open my DTW workbench as Beth showed us before. I will click on import. And here I basically have 3 options of importing. I can import setup data. Setup data, which is usually located in our administration module, which is tax codes, banks, any general settings for our company. I can upload master data, which we will be using in this case. Master data will be items, business partners, general, basically price lists and things like that, general information. And also, we do have an option to upload transactions. Transactions can be any documents, sales documents, purchasing documents, productions documents, and journal entries. We will be able to do that using the transaction option. But as I mentioned, we will be uploading master data the customers, so I'm using this option here, clicking on next. And I can choose if I would like to add new data, if I would like to update existing data, or if I'd like to update whatever I have, and if I have any new records that are not there, I will always be able, the system will basically just create the new ones. So in this case, I will be updating existing data because I already have these customers set up in SAP. After I click on next, I will need to select what I'm uploading. What is the setting that I'm uploading? In this case, I'm working on business partners. And as you can see here, it's also very similar to our main menu in SAP. So I'm choosing business partners, business partner master data. And here I can choose the file that I would like to upload. Now with DTW, we have several options of working with files. We can work with CSV file type, or we can work with a TXT file type. We will mention the differences in a few minutes, but basically it's up to you. You know, you can decide what's more relevant to you, what's easier for you to work and use. So in our case, I will use the CSV file, and once I'm choosing the right file setup, I will just need to choose here the relevant location. So my location is here. I'm choosing the file that I would like to upload and click on open. We can skip this section here, just going with next. And here, this is one step before we actually do the upload. So usually we would recommend starting the upload, testing the upload in your sandbox, because after you upload the information, upload the file, the data in SAP will change. And we would like you to have the option to review that before it actually impacts and changes everything in your system. So please, if you have a sandbox, do that on the sandbox at first, and only after you made sure that that's the right thing, you can move forward and upload everything into the live database, into the production database. Another option that we have here is to use the run simulation. In this case, it will not do any updates, any uploads, anything. It will just check all the settings. It will check if my selections were right, and if my file format is okay, if the data there is okay, and it will just give me a chance to clean up or change anything that's not working. So I will choose the run simulation, and let's see what we get here. Okay, so you can see that I was trying to update 21 records, and out of my 21 records, 20 records were updated successfully, and one object was not updated. So let's take a look at that. Here, this is my log file, and here I can see everything that happened, what was successfully updated and what failed. Sometimes it's easier to select a specific display option, so I'm choosing failed here, and I can see that for this customer, I have not a valid value in one of the columns. So let's go back and take a look at my file. This is the customer that I had my error for, and you can see that basically if I go here into the column setting, you see that I need to set up my properties as TS and not as a regular yes, and this was basically my error. So once I change that and update that to TS, I will be able to upload it successfully. Now I already have it saved in another file, so just let's do another upload run and see how it works. So now after I updated everything.
Karina, yeah. I think we got a question in the chat from Brian saying, why not just select the bottom option every time? I think it was related to when you started, and Brian, maybe you can clarify, but when you started and it gives you the three options of either add new data, update existing, or both.
Why not select, okay. Because if, for example, if I have a lot of records in my DTW file, and I'm not sure if I have new information or old information, and I know that I want to only upload new data, I don't want to touch anything that's already existing. And using the last option will just update fields and information that I might not want to do. So in this case, if we're only choosing a specific way of uploading, as maybe just to update or just to create a new one, we will just minimize the errors and you know, not update things that were not supposed to be updated. Now, another question I see from Sherry is if you leave a field blank, will it blank it or leave the data unchanged? If we are updating data and we leave one of the fields blank, it will just not update anything. So it will not delete the information in SAP. It will just not update anything there. So in this case, if we go back real quickly to my file, for example, I have my payment terms here. You see that I didn't touch it. I didn't update that. It will not change anything in SAP. It will just leave it as is. Only if I have any information here, it will go and update that. Any questions? Okay. So let me close out everything and let's start again with my new and updated file. So I'm just selecting everything again. I can run the simulation again, just to make sure that everything's right. And you see that now everything can be updated. Now I close. I can get my log here, but I can close that. And I click on next. And once I click on import, it will import it to the database. you can see here the name of the database that we're working on, the name of the database that it will update and upload information to. And again, please start with the sandbox if you have that, and only afterwards upload it to the live database. So let me click on import. And that's it. We have our items updated and imported. And I can just show you, if we switch back to SAP real quickly. This is, for example, one of the customers that we updated. We updated the customer group to be upload test. And we also have here under the properties, the property that was selected. So this is one way of updating data with the DTW tool. Do you have any questions so far? Okay.
Wonderful. So if we don't have any questions, we'll move on to some tips and tricks that we have. So first of all, in our tips and tricks is noting about using the TXT file type with commas. So I know it seems very specific, but you, as Karina was showing, you either have the option to use a text type file or a CSV type file to do your uploads. There's no huge difference in deciding which way you want to go. It all just depends. I switch back and forth all the time. But if you have data that has commas in it, so a lot of times we see this in business partners with, you'll have the business partner name, comma, Inc., or, in different item descriptions or things like that. If when you take that text file and you put it over into, basically converting it from your Excel file to a text file, it'll add double quotation marks around a field that has commas in it. So you may see if you, don't do anything about it and just upload it that way, you may see that you have business partner names where, if it has a comma in it, it'll be encapsulated by those double quotations. So all you need to do with that file, when you have a text type file with commas, just once you convert it into a text file, just go in and do the find and replace and just remove any of those double quotations so you're not importing data with them. Additionally, as Karina kind of touched on, we need to, when you're importing with the Data Transfer Workbench, you always have to keep those template columns in order. So it's looking for specific data in a specific order. That's also why in our next tip, you also want to generate a new template after any time that you've added a user-defined field. So kind of those two important things are keeping the columns in order. Again, you can hide them when you're first entering data, but otherwise unhide them, generate your text or your CSV file. Keep them in order and make sure that you have all your user-defined fields in there, even if you're not entering any data in those user-defined fields. And then last but not least was making sure that you run the Data Transfer Workbench program as administrator. So always do that right-click, run as admin. Again, we said if you have any users that you want to do this, reach out to us. We can help you. And also, there is a way to have the program run as admin by default. So if you need any help with that, feel free to reach out as well. So if we don't have any more questions about the Data Transfer Workbench, I'll pass it back over to Karina to show you the import from Excel process.
Okay, thanks, Matt. So the import from Excel is very similar to the DTW, but of course, a little bit different as well. If we open SAP, the import from Excel, not like DTW, which is a separate program, you will need to go and install it separately, check if it's there or not. the import from Excel is already within SAP, so you don't have to do anything. Just go find it and basically start using it. It's located under administration. We have data import and export, data import, and we have several options of importing data into SAP, but today we will focus on the option to import from Excel. Now, I usually like to think of import from Excel as a simpler option, maybe a faster option of updating information without the need of looking for templates, setting up specific columns or generating new templates. Here it's more flexible. You can choose what columns you would like to have, what data you would like to update. So usually I would recommend, if it's something that's relatively quick and simple, to use the import here. In the import from Excel, we don't have an option to do a simulation or anything like that. So once we upload it, it's actually there. So again, the same suggestion is relevant for this option. Please first use the sandbox before actually doing it on your live database. Now, the import, I have a question from General Sunsets. Where is the import for Excel application? So again, it's not a separate application. It's something that's within SAP, and it's located under administration, data import, export, data import, and import from Excel. Now, I would like to show an example with items. We reviewed business partners before, so let's switch over to something else. Now you can see that once I work with my import from Excel and I already uploaded other fields, I did other uploads maybe a few days ago, I already have the fields here selected and set up. So I can maybe go in and use those, or I can select the relevant fields that I would like to use in this case. So on my example, not all of these columns will be relevant for my specific upload. So I would like to clear the selection. In order to clear a selection, I will just need to select the blank row. Once I select the blank row, I can just delete it from here. Now, I would like to upload, in this case, item number, update property 1, and also update the foreign name for the items. So I have the sales item here, and I want to take it out of here, and I want to move the foreign name. If I try to select foreign name from this list, I won't be able to find it because it's already selected here in row D. So I will need, in this case, to deselect it from row D and then select it again here under foreign name. And this is basically my template. This is my file, and this is how I will set up and generate my template. So let's open our example. Now you can see, compared to the DTW template, it's really very simple. I created the columns, I gave them a name just so I know, what I'm updating there and what I'm doing there. I do need to keep a primary key in this case as well. So if I'm updating the items, I do have to have the item code. In this case, I don't have to have the item name or description or anything. Item code is item number is our primary key, and the system will know to use that. So again, this is a very nice feature with the upload from Excel. It's very flexible and gives you the option to just set up any column and any information that you would like to have, of course, from the list that's available there. Now, another important thing to remember, in this case, we also don't really save the file as an Excel file. We will need to save it as TXT. We don't have any other options as with the DTW. We have to only work with the TXT file. And after we save the file, we have to also make sure that we close the file during the upload. If the file that we're uploading to SAP is open, in the background, SAP will not upload the data. We will get error messages. The system might also close, and we don't really want that. So just make sure that all the files are closed there. So just a second, let me close out here. Okay, now I'm going back to SAP. I'm selecting my file here. And here again, I have the same options that we saw with the DTW. If I want to add new records and update existing records, only add without an update or only update without adding. So it's very similar. In this case, I already have the items and I only want to update those. So I just updating it. So once I click on import, I see that I have an error message here for all the items, and basically the upload does not work. It will not continue. So I will need to go back to my file and see what happened there. Now, opening the file again, another thing that we will need to remember when working with the Excel upload is that we need to delete the header line from the file before we can upload that, because the system basically just looks for the data itself and not the header files that we have here. So before uploading, we have to make sure that we deleted everything. So once I delete that, now my file is ready. I can save it as a TXT file and upload it to SAP. So let's do that. I do have an example that I prepared before. So in this case, I click on cancel. I choose a different file in this case. Now you can see that there's a bar here that shows me my progress, and I can see that 91 records were updated successfully. And I can go back and take a look at my items. And you see that for some of them, I updated their Excel upload. So the upload was successful. Any questions so far? Okay. Okay, so I do see that we have a question. How do we import price lists for items with multiple UOMs using DTW? So in this case, we will actually need to work with several templates. We will need a template for the items and for the price lists. And we can, if you would like to reach out to us, we can show you how that can be done and what's the process of doing that. But we will need, and we did show here simple examples of uploading one file at a time. In this case, we will need to work with several items and upload them at once. Another question that we have, when should we use Excel versus DTW? It's basically, I would recommend testing, maybe playing around a little bit, trying to see what works best, what's easier for you. From my experience, usually the upload from Excel is, again, something that's not as complicated. You don't need to update several tables at once. For example, with the last question that we had UOMs, we had price lists, we had items. So it's relatively more complicated. So in this case, I would go with the DTW option, because I can, with the DTW, update more than one table at a time. And in the DTW case, the DTW also helps me to set up the right connections and right relationships. So that would be my way of selecting what tool to use. How complicated is the data, and also how many records do we have? We do know from our experience that if we have large sets of data to upload, DTW will be a better choice in handling those uploads.
I would also, to add to that, just note, as Karina was saying, in here, you don't get any error message or error handling before you do the import from Excel, whereas you saw in the Data Transfer Workbench that you can run the simulation first, essentially. So a lot of times, maybe for import from Excel, if there are different business partner updates that you do frequently, item updates, price list updates that you do fairly frequently, you're really comfortable with the upload, things like that, those may be better to do in the import from Excel, especially if they're simple and and you're comfortable with it. You can always, go into your sandbox and test the import from Excel, but just in terms of the error handling, sometimes, for, like Karina was saying, bigger, more complex stuff, I usually go with DTW. So any other questions here on our import from Excel or anything we've covered so far? And if not, we will go into just a few, oops, looks like that's still up here. One moment. Okay, so we'll go into just a few import from Excel tips and tricks that we have for you. So the first one being saving templates. So Karina was showing you in here, she had a few, essentially with her initial items upload, there are a few standard columns that you need to designate here for your items upload, or a few default columns. What you can do though is, say you have a few more columns that you always need to add, or you make these updates fairly frequently and you want to save this as a template so that every time you need to do this items upload, you can just pop open the template and run your upload. You can save those as a template. So say we have these fields here, we can just click this, save as template, and enter our template name, say yes. And now anytime, we'll cancel out of that, open back up. Now anytime that we want to import our items here, we can click our template. We have another one here. So you can customize them exactly as you'd like, save it as a template, and then every time you go to run it, you don't have to select all your different fields, because you can see there are quite a few. We also have the option to import from Excel within forms. So some of these forms will launch the Excel import straight from the form. So for instance, if we open our journal entry form here, you'll see that there's an import from Excel option on the bottom. We can just click that and it will launch the form with everything that it needs to import. And then again, you would just go through the process that Karina showed and click here and find your file. So there was a question from Marwan about how to import prices to a non-based price list. So for prices, I like to import it through the Data Transfer Workbench. And if you look at some samples for that, that import, it may show you some good samples. But essentially, when you're importing prices to a price list, you'll just need to specify what the price list number is. So you can find that, not to diverge too much, but just for your records, that table is OPLN. And we can execute it from here, and it'll give you a price list here. So these are all our different price lists, and then when we want to import new information or update, that's how we would do it for the price list. So let me know, Marwan, if that answered your question. Next, we have our import from Excel, or sorry, Microsoft Excel files must be closed before the import. So that just means, and I think Karina might have shown it, but that just means that when you're actually going to do your import from Excel here, once you've selected your file, all of that good stuff, just make sure it's not open down here in Excel or in your notepad or anything like that, because it won't let you process that file if it's still open. And then additionally, they have to be saved as text files. Like we said, for the DTW option, you can either do CSV or text files. In this case, they just have to be saved as text files. Additionally, similar to what we saw in the Data Transfer Workbench, the columns have to match between your upload file and what you've specified on the import from Excel form. So in here, everything that you have here needs to match what you have in your text file. And then last but not least, and I know Karina mentioned this, but just as a reminder, you don't want to have any header fields in that file. So you can use your header row when you're putting all of your data in, but just make sure to delete that before you save the file for import. So any questions about any of these tips and tricks, anything else, paste them in the chat. Besides that, we're going to look at our last and one of the kind of most simple options for data import, which is copy and pasting into forms. So I know it seems silly, but it can actually be a very valuable tool to just copy and paste straight into forms. There is a little bit of, some more setup and some more steps that you have to do when you're running the DTW or the import from Excel. And so sometimes it is good to, take a step back and look at your data and see if it would be more beneficial just to copy and paste. So creating a small example, we'll just open a sales order, and you can think of potentially a customer that sends you all of their sales orders in an Excel file. So they just send you an Excel and say, I want to order this, I want 10 of this, 5 of this, etc. And so in that case, instead of, maybe it's a long Excel, instead of manually typing that out, it would just be easier to copy and paste. So here's a very simple example. We'll go ahead and copy this information. You may see here that I left a blank field right in the middle. So if we look at SAP, we have our item number, item description, quantity, and warehouse. In this case, unless your item description matches perfectly what you have in SAP, I would say don't enter anything for, oops, sorry about that. I would say don't enter anything for that, because if you have this item number, it will autofill that item description. So we just copy this data, go over into SAP, click on this field, and then you can either right click and paste or just do Control V, and it'll go through the process and paste all of your data in there and then autofill the rest. So it is a quick and easy way to get a lot of data in there. Just like we saw with the other two import methods, we do want to make sure that whatever data you're copying here matches up exactly with the column formats that you're pasting into. And it looks like we have another question in the chat here. So somebody asked, could you share an example of what Marwan has asked? Sometimes there are so many items for which prices need to be updated urgently, and these price updates can vary from item to item. So I can show you, let's see, so I can show you a template of what it would look like and kind of show you where the information would go in here just quickly. So if we go into our Data Transfer Workbench, we go into templates. Let Where is it? Thank you. There we go. Inventory, price list, and then our OPLN here. So actually, there's two different ones that we can look at really quickly. So the first one is the actual price list. This is if you're going to create a whole new price list. A lot of times I just do this in SAP. Unless you're creating a bunch of different price lists at one time, in general, you can just create that in SAP as you go. This is the template that you would use for actually updating item prices. So as you'll notice, it's a lot more simple than what we saw in some of our master data examples. So in this case, our item code would go right here. You can see this is a child table, so it's matching, it's looking for the parent key, which again, it's just that, that unique identifier or item code. We want to add a price list here. So as I showed earlier, there's that price list number that we can pull from SAP. And so we just want to pull whatever that price list number is. We'll add a price here. And then I believe for this one, the trick is for line num, that it's just price list -1. So it doesn't actually, this line num value in different imports, it means different things. But here we would have our item codes, say we're updating price list 5, and so our line num would be 4, and then we would just enter our price here. And the benefit of this is that you can actually update different price lists at a time. So maybe if you want to update these 3 items and you need to update the price list, the prices for them in price list 1, 2, and 3, you can do that as well.
Just another important point to remember about price lists. We don't have history saved for price lists in SAP. So if you do upload price lists using either DTW or upload from Excel, please back up your database before or test it, and test it in your sandbox just to make sure that the data is correct, because we will not be able to roll back and get the information that was there before. So just a reminder about that specific upload.
Wonderful. And then we got one more question in the chat from Jackie asking, can you put validity dates on the import file and would they be formatted differently? So I'm not sure I understand your question about the formatting, so maybe if you could clarify that. But in terms of validity dates on the import file, if you're asking about in terms of maybe here for the business partner master data, how sometimes if you make it active or inactive, there's kind of a validity date here, or for special prices, there are validity dates in that way. You can import those dates, but in terms of an actual valid date for the import file itself, there's no kind of valid date that you can put on the import file. So whoever has the administrator access to use this program, if they create a file, they are able to upload it. If that answers your question, let me know. Feel free to clarify in the chat. And then, okay, so Jackie said for dates, generally when you are doing imports here and you have a date value that you need to enter, I believe, and I always do year, month, day. Internal code for the GL account in SAP. So that's how SAP kind of sees that GL account code internally. When you are copy and pasting, you don't want to use that same code that you would use for your DTW. You just want to use the GL account code as it is. So if in any case you need to import into your sales order, for instance, anytime you need to import that GL, just make sure that you use the actual GL account code. Additionally, and as you'll now see is relevant for each of the import methods, make sure that your columns are exactly the same way when you're copy pasting. And then also just a note regarding pasting into user-defined tables. In those, you can only paste from one row at a time. So a lot of times I find it easier to do a DTW if you need to update a user-defined table, since you can just only copy one row at a time.
Okay. Thanks, Beth. So basically, we're reaching the end of our webinar and the end of the presentation. These are the documentation options that you have. You can log into our website. We have some tips and tricks there. We have our tips and tricks LinkedIn page. YouTube, we have several videos there. You can also find additional YouTubes there. And of course, Google, you can always Google your question and find answer this there. And you're always, more than welcome to reach out to us with any questions, requests, issues, and anything regarding any options of uploading and updating information in SAP.
Great. And just to add on to that, this session has been recorded, so we will be posting that, sending that, all kinds of getting that to you. So if you do want to review this, feel free. You'll be able to have that recording. Otherwise, just a quick summary of what we did. We did do a crash course before this, and then also showed you the Data Transfer Workbench. Explained that program, showed you the templates, also ran through the import process, and then also import from Excel and copy and pasting into forms. Otherwise, feel free, I know we're kind of running out of time here, but if you do have any questions, feel free to ask them now, put them in the chat. Otherwise, I've included our emails here. Feel free to take them down, reach out to us anytime if you have questions. We're always happy to help, always happy to answer.
Okay, I do see that we have a question. If we are intending on doing another webinar on setting up dashboards for SAP on-premise, I'm not sure if it's a subject that we have in our list, but we can. That's a great idea. We can add that, and we will, of course, send updates once. We have dates and additional information about that. So thanks for that subject, and we will take a look at that. Any other questions? Okay. So thank you everybody for joining this webinar. Again, please feel free to reach out to us, to myself, or to Beth, or any of your other contacts with Pioneer. We will be sending out this presentation and the recording of this session. And hope you have a good day and enjoy your weekend. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone.